You are not doing well. You just have mediocre friends. And a lot of the human experiences that we have are directly influenced by the people that we spend our time with. There are studies from Harvard research that have shown that influence travels up to third degree levels. So it means that your friends' achievements or their life events can influence you. So the crucial question I always like to ask is, what would our life look like if we're not comparing ourselves with mediocres? We're not comparing ourselves with people who are not taking any form of action. The people that you compare yourself to, the people that are around you, determines how fast you can take off in life. Because if you have mediocres around you, they are not challenging you. If you have mediocres around you, you are not seeing the possibilities of what can be. Most people are not doing well. They just have mediocre friends. They just have people who are not pushing them to their limits.
So good to have you on the show.
Wow.
It's been a long time coming, coupled with the fact that there are a lot of things I know we have to talk about, especially around marketing and your philosophy of life. I'm quite intrigued with the level of philosophy that you put out there. It's so good to have you in person on the PT podcast.
It's been a long time coming, brother.
Yeah.
So good to see you.
Thank you. First thing I want to start with is this. There was a time you mentioned that if you are not doing well, you are surrounded by mediocres. And I've been wondering what the context behind that whole take. What's it about? Like the context behind that if you're not doing well, you're surrounded by like a lot of mediocres.
Okay. So it goes back to a tweet that I have that you are not doing well. You just have mediocre friends. And a lot of the human experiences that we have are directly influenced or contributed to by the people that we spend our time with. And there are studies from Harvard research that have shown that influence travels up to third degree levels. So it means that your friends' achievements or their life events can influence you. So the crucial question I'd always like to ask is, what would our life look like if we're not comparing ourselves with mediocres, if we're not comparing ourselves with people who are not taking any form of action? Because the people that you compare yourself to, the people that are around you, actually determine the speed or determines how fast you can take off in life. Because if you have mediocres around you, they are not challenging you. If you have mediocres around you, you are not seeing the possibilities of what can be. Most people are not doing well. They just have mediocre friends. They just have people who are not pushing them to their limits, people who are not making strides in their industry. I'll give you a short story to this. There's a guy called Alex Wang, the guy that Meta newly brought in. I wasn't surprised when the guy, had that kind of success after I discovered that he was actually roommates with Sam Altman, who is the CEO and the founder of OpenAI. So that tells you that influence travels in circles. So if you're not doing well and you do not know it, it's actually because you're around the wrong people.
Well, how did you realize, and when was it that you figured out that this thing is so? I mean, there are a couple events that lead up to the different things that we call our belief. Certain events lead to what becomes our belief systems. At what point did you realize in your journey as an entrepreneur, starting from a young age, that your circle has so much influence? We were growing up and they kept telling us, show me your friends, to tell you who you are. It's not automatically true.
Yeah.
It's not. I can choose to show them that this person is my friend and they are not doing well and I'm doing well, right? So what time in your life did you realize that these circles have things that they do in your human being?
Okay. First, I'll say something about beliefs. And it's the fact that if you have a belief, you cannot explain why you believe. It's not your belief. You are only ideologically processed. An ideological processed person is someone who cannot explain why they believe what they believe, even though they defend it blindly against reason. So cycling back to what you just asked, that at what point did I know that the influence around your life matters how far you can go? I think that's because I do not like to refer to myself as autistic, but I've noticed myself to have some autistic traits. And maybe that has given me this awareness of the environment since I was a very young person.
That's not a good thing.
Well, depends on how you frame it. Depends on how you frame it.
Okay.
So I've always had this extreme awareness of not just watching myself, watching other people, the details since I was growing up. And growing up, I grew up around church like a lot of people, and I would usually see people who maybe youths when I was a teenager. I would see youths who were like enterprising. They have this drive, and you're like, this person is going to do very well. Only for them to, after 2 or 3 years, just rhyme with everybody, especially if they've just come into the church in uni. You just see that they just rhyme with everybody. And I watched it with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6%. And then I figured we are not more powerful than our environment. I have a quote or a tweet around this that discipline bows to routine. Your routine bows to your environment. If you fix the environment, you won't have discipline issues. So,
But then I feel like it's not entirely true about the discipline and the environment thingy, right?
mhm.
Reason is discipline is a function of doing what you love. I put it that way, just for lack of better terms. So whether I like podcasting, whether I feel disciplined or not to podcast or ask people questions, out of curiosity, out of the love of knowing new things and forgetting some things at the same time, picking up things, leaving the rest aside, I tend to want to do it more, right? And there is always a why. There's always a why for why you're doing something, to get that satisfaction, to get knowledge, to become aware and informed. So even in an environment where it's not feasible, I look for a way to make it happen. Some people call that discipline. I say it's love.
Mm. The way I will circle back to how I knew, the influence around your life matters. Just to dig into the discipline thing, the amount of work it takes to be a great person, the amount of work it takes to outdo other people. Because I know everybody try to say things like we're not in a competition and all of this stuff, but practically no, that's not true. Right. So when we're all in a competition, whether people admit it or not, they know it at the back of their minds. And so the amount of work it takes to outwork other people, to outrun other people, cannot be achieved if you only depend on doing things because you love them or because you feel like doing them. So my definition for discipline is very simple. Discipline is doing what you said you would do. And it doesn't matter whether or not the conditions are there. I mean, palatable conditions are there for you to do it. It just means that you said you would do it. Do it. And that's sort of what translates into confidence. We like to, in the physical world, just to take a detour, to circle back, in the physical world, there are a lot of outward adjustments that people can do to look more confident. Part of it is raising your shoulders, making sure your
The chin is up.
chin is up, and then you're looking straight, eye contact, and all of this stuff. But all those things are external factors, and the real factor of what makes a person confident is that they have a stack of undeniable proof that they have done the things that they promised themselves that they would do. So public confidence is usually as a result of private discipline. And discipline means doing the things that you said you would do. Environments have more influences that we are willing to
admit.
Yes, and even the human, if you look at it from a biological perspective, now this from an evolutionary perspective, it is not the strongest species that survives. Yeah. It is not the strongest species that survives. It is not the fastest. The species that survive are the most adaptable ones. That's by I think was it Richard Dawkins or Charles Darwin's, the father of evolutionary theory, was the one who said that. So humans as we are, the way we are living right now is directly influenced by our environment. The reason why we are black people is because we have more melanin on our skin, and that's because of the part of the world that we live in. The reason why some people are more light skinned than us is because they live in a place where there's less sun. So their body had to regulate for survival. So as much as we hate it, you can only struggle with your environment for a long period of time before the environment, outweighs you. I think Jordan Peterson has this thing about how it phrases it like this, that we grow to the degree to which we are able to voluntarily take on pressure. It calls it responsibility, or responsibility, is pressure. So how far a person will grow determines how willing they are to undertake pressure without, because I think a lot of people do not, one of the things that separates high performers from just everybody is high performers know how to self-regulate, to sort of synthesize pressure even if it's not there. So if you are somebody who needs people to always inspire you, you won't really go very far. You have to have this self-regulation where you know that, I don't know, whatever you want to tell yourself, whatever, creates the pressure for you. And naturally, if you're a student of life, you know that there's just enough pressure, in life generally.
Yeah. Let's just look around all of that.
So we naturally grow to the degree to which we are able to take on voluntary pressure.
What led to you wanting to even do marketing in the first place?
My whole thing about marketing, plus or minus, I've been doing entrepreneurship since I was, for the most part of my life, because my parents, are business people. And then my dad used to have like a big sawmill. So I was more famous in the bank than I was famous in school. And that's because I'm the kid who wears a school uniform but has to go and deposit money for my dad every fact. So more people, especially the bank workers, know me as the guy who comes in the morning and has to go to school. So I was going to school late because I was handling business for my dad. And so
At what age was this?
I was in GSS, from GSS 2, GSS 3. And that was like, maybe I was like 14, 13 back then. And back then, you have money has value. So if 13-year-old kid, you're going to deposit 500K, to send money to your dad's partners and stuff. So I've always been around business. At some point, I was like his PA. My dad would just travel and then I'll be the one who is running the shop. Sometimes in stock, we have 2, 3, 4 million naira worth of goods, and then I'll be the one managing it. So I've always seen the potential in business. And I figured marketing was the way to go because I think it's one of the most important skill sets anybody can have, because once you understand marketing, you can literally make money from any industry because it's still the same framework. The frameworks are the same. There are basic things that you have to do. The whole thing about marketing or advertising is the word advertising comes from the root word advertire. It means to draw attention to something. And then when you're drawing attention to something, it's either because you want attendance or you want people to take a specific action. So when I knew that it was a skill set that it was a niche skill set that was relevant across industries, I figured I was just going to like niche down and then learn it all for us.
So it's safe to say like this spark came from you helping your parents and their business. So it still takes me back to like the whole training of a child in how they should grow.
That's environment.
Yeah, environment.
Environment for you.
Environment.
Now I see what you're saying. Because if I didn't grow up in that environment, I've seen the business doesn't exist anymore. And I practically saw the mistakes that they made. So I have, maybe by privilege, seen a lot of businesses fail. And I've been able to extrapolate lessons for how they failed. And I've also been able to juxtapose businesses that now succeed because I study a lot of businesses, study a lot of, people that are doing very well. And by privilege, I've been able to juxtapose them and I see, okay, this is where these people do it wrong. This is where these people did it right. Because my environment gave me this up-close view of how business is being run. And so
I'm wondering what the difference between marketing and sales is. I mean, I should know it, but let's take, for instance, that I'm not very much aware of what the difference between like sales and marketing generally. But sales, marketing, distribution is still like generalized under marketing, but like just a little bit of refreshing our mind there.
okay, so marketing is everything you do to get attention for whatever product service that you're offering. Sales is everything you do, every action you do that increases the likelihood that the person gives you their money. So marketing is getting attention, sales is getting the money.
They work hand in hand.
Yes, they work hand in hand on a lot of levels.
So safe to say, like, marketing starts the process for sales.
Yes.
Ah.
Because you have to like get people's attention, you have to get them to notice whatever it is that you're selling. And then once they notice, then you can now, start depending on the sales process of whatever it is that you're selling. And so if the sales process is pretty straightforward, then once your marketing is done correctly, then the sales will be easy. Yeah.
Wow.
So marketing is drawing attention. Sales itself is whatever you do to get the people to bring out their wants.
I'm thinking, why exactly do we need to like have this business idea, these skills, how to like run a business effectively, how to do marketing effectively? Because marketing starts with the whole purpose of doing a business is to like make sales, get profit, make revenue, all of those things. So it's essential to know the basic principles of business. Why do you think it's like important that, especially young builders right now, my focus is on young builders, why they need to learn so much about business that they're doing?
Something that strikes me is how on every global scale of discussion on finance and business, Africa is always being mentioned. And so everyone is talking about how Africa is an emerging market and how there's a lot of potential that are untapped in the territory that we're in. If the world is highlighting us as an emerging market where there are a lot of potentials, we are going to be doing ourselves massive disservice if we do not learn the skills that positions us at the helms of affairs. Because my mission personally, doing content and all of this thing, is to, I don't want to say raise the next generation of business leaders, but my mission or my why for doing all this is to ensure that by the time the emerging market emerges, we have people who are well equipped with the business technicality. We have powerful CEOs, powerful business operators. We have powerful board members who are Africans, who are sitting at the helms of the emerged industry, because the lack of interest in education, especially business education in Africa, is by design. It's not, and we can boil that down to the fact that if a nation is reduced to poverty, people are focused on survival. And we all know it's all by design, even though we don't want to go there right now. So if people are focused on survival, they won't be able to learn these skills that put them on tables that actually matter. So it's very important because we're an emerging market. The world is spotlighting us, and we have to ensure that our people are prepared, because we tend to look at Gen Z as this generation of young people, but Gen Z is like the next big thing. There you go. So humans are constantly being born, inverted, and they're constantly exiting this room. If the world spotlights us as an emerging market, we must position ourselves and get ourselves out of survival, out of the old get-rich-quick scheme, out of the old MLMs, and ensure that we are actually capable people. And I think traditional school is failing in this area, and we're now beginning to see more decentralized platforms that educate people and provide them with information that they actually need to be, good business CEOs, to be good, business operators.
What's the way forward? I'm like thinking about it. What's the way forward? How can we move? Because there is a massive widespread, like I call it, it's a widespread of no information. So we have a lot of young Africans, for what it's worth. The spotlight is not to put them in a bad place, but to like create this awareness that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of education. How do we move from here to getting people to even try to leave the old system? Because people don't want to leave the old system. They're like extremely comfortable where they are.
I have an unusual take around this. Do you want to guess?
Let's have it.
As much as we would like to get a lot of people out of the old system, if you get everybody out, the system crumbles.
Mm.
And so people being in the old system is sort of necessary for civilization to be. However, everyone has a choice whether or not they want to be in the system or they want to actually be in the new system where, the world is evolving into. And I think this now boils everything down to personal responsibility, because if you do not think that you have control of your life, if you do not think you have ownership of your life, and ownership boils down to risk, boils down to control, boils down to profit, and stuff like that. So if you do not think that you can call the shots in your life, there's no way you would even start to maybe learn about the things that you actually need. Because I don't think people need to go to school except if you want to learn niche skills like law, like medicine, and stuff. And that's because of the fact that you would actually be a better business person doing business than studying business 4 years in the university, because the speed of real life execution and real life test running teaches you more about running a business, about being a CEO, about being an operator, than learning the theories and the theatrics in conferences.
Oh yes, I agree with you.
So the new right now is, and I do not think that there is a shortage of information. I think there is a shortage of implementation, because anybody literally can go on ChatGPT right now, and then you can prompt ChatGPT. And years from now, we are going to have implants where humans are going to be able to search the internet just by thinking. They're already postponing that, with Elon Musk and all of these guys. They're already doing that right now, and they have been successful so far. So we are not in an information scarce era. We are in an era where the thing with information is when it's very abundant, people sort of like get an overload, and it's natural. So the people who know don't worry right now. The people who win are the people who implement what they know.
I keep saying this thing about acting, on being acted upon. And this is just like a reinforcement at this time. So I didn't think about it before. Nothing beats it for real. So you like move from a place of knowing to a place of actually executing, move past that place of like wondering, should we do this?
So actually doing it.
To actually doing it.
And it cycles back to something we were discussing yesterday.
Yes.
About how talking about changing your life is not changing your life. Complaining about changing your life is not changing your life. Looking at other people and getting inspired about changing your life is not changing your life.
That's right.
Writing down how you're going to change your life is not even changing your life. Talking with friends and families about changing your life is not changing your life. The only thing that is changing your life is doing the actions that directly increases the odds that your life will be changed.
Waking up very early in the morning.
Yeah.
What's stopping you? What are you doing in your bed by 7 a.m.? I mean, it's fine, some of us.
I have this trait where I said, you are either working the 12 or 16-hour days, or you are working for somebody who is working the 12 to 16-hour days. Where a lot of people get pushbacks. Like, it all depends on what you are optimizing for in life. If you want a life that is just okay, then you can be working 4 hours a day. And that 4 hours a day, you're actually working 4 hours out of the 16 hours of somebody else who is actually working the long hours. And if your thing is, oh, I'm just cool. And, I think when people say they are just cool, they're not in competition with anyone, I'm very suspicious of those people. And that's because of the fact that the tendency to not want to conquer the world in men is a bug, not a feature. So what that means is that when you see men who do not have a natural primal instinct to want to conquer the world, to want to become great, to want to be known, it's actually because they have been fed narratives that it's okay to not explore the boundaries of their potentials. And so those people are usually psyoped and worst, and they are some of the most unhappy people, because happiness in itself is as a result of pursuing a worthy goal, setting a goal, and then saying, I'm going to achieve this no matter what it takes. The world as we know it has changed. Part of what people don't understand is the internet has made it easier for everyone to be seen. So we have this limitless possibility of exploring, the world and attention. But the flip side of that is the internet has also made competition global. So right now, somebody in the village can actually see what other people are doing outside of their village. And what that means is that they now have like a 2-degree level of environment, the immediate one that they live in, and then the one that they get to experience via the internet. Do you get what I'm saying? So your environment determines the range of your possibilities, because if you do not know that something exists, it won't even come to your mind that I want to pursue it. Do you get?
You've been marketing for quite a while, training people, working with business leaders and all of that. What's the difference that you'd say between marketing as it was before, when there was not so much noise, and what it is right now? What do you think can be done better?
Very good question. Again, like I said, the internet has made competition global. So you're no longer competing with people just in Nigeria. You're competing with people in your industry across the whole world. The internet really changes a lot of things, because now you now have digital marketing. Before, it used to be TV and all of this stuff. Now your media, virtually what we're doing right now is on our own terms. Do you get? So I think a lot of people need to realize that the attention is now out there, and they don't have to get it on the terms of other people. And there are basically 4 channels of marketing or advertising. The first, you have content, and which is what we are doing right now. And then the second, you have paid advertising, which is going on somebody's platform like Zuckerberg's. So that's the second. The third one is when you're doing warm outreach. That's when you're telling people who you already have some level of familiarity about your product. And then the fourth one is cold outreach, where you're telling total strangers about what you do, about your product or your service. So they all have their typicalities, but then literally the internet makes it easier to do all 4 of these things. Helps you do it at scale. Do you understand? So I think people have to realize that the internet is for them to use. Because I've spoken with founders who, especially those people who are, more on the age side. I've spoken with founders who their head of marketing doesn't really understand digital marketing, doesn't know SEO, doesn't know about funnels, doesn't know about email automation sequences, doesn't know about split testing, ads, campaign creatives, and all of this stuff. So people have to realize that the internet is here and is here to stay. And I don't think it's new information anyways. And the eyeballs are just here.
I saw there was a time you helped the gym owner strategize their marketing experiences. What's like the biggest misconceptions that you've had so far helping founders do their product marketing in 2025?
People pay professionals and then act like they are the professionals. The amount of times when I've been across the table and I'm in the position to help a founder, a business, and I couldn't help them because they felt like they knew more than what we know.
Despite paying you?
Despite paying us. About the time where we did, not even once, not twice, when we've had to adjust the outcomes, we have had to fix calls with people, and then I'm like, if you're going to keep tampering with the system that we're working with, we cannot guarantee you this outcome anymore, because we are guaranteeing XYZ outcome based on the fact that we have a system that we follow through. So if you're paying somebody who is an expert, the best approach is to treat them like an expert and trust their recommendation. Because if you wouldn't trust their recommendation, why work with them in the first place? If you have not seen their track of work, why work with them in the first place? So I cannot tell you how much of arrogance comes with owning a Nigerian business and working with a third party. People want to, and I'm usually like, if you know how to do it, then why didn't you do it before I came in?
I agree.
So people have this ego, and I have a book that dismantles it. Maybe September-ish we're looking to bring it out.
Oh, wonderful.
The price people pay for their ego is that they won't have smart people on their team, because they'll constantly feel threatened. So they're going to have people that are less smarter than them. And if you have a team of people where you are the smartest person as the founder or the business leader, you're going to have to do the most heavy lifting, because the difference between A players B players and C players is A players can actually go like, fuck that, I'm going to get it done. B players need supervision, and businesses that naturally scale are businesses that have A players that need less supervision, and you just need to provide them with the materials that they need to execute in. The sweet spot is you want to have people who are extremely good at what they're doing, and you're not the smartest on your team, because if you're the smartest, you have to be doing the most heavy lifting. And that's what I see a lot of founders doing. People have a lot of headcounts, but they don't really have people who can get the job done.
Oh, yes. I think the thing is there's a belief that the more people you have, the more well you're doing.
Yeah.
Which is actually not a very good belief.
Mm-hmm. And can I say something to that? That belief used to be valid before the AI revolution. And that's because of the fact that if you consider the factors of production, you have capital, land, labor, and then the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is the owner of the business, constant. And then capital is, we're talking about money and financial resources. And then the labor part used to be a lot of manpower on, because humans literally went from gatherers to, from hunters, gatherers and stuff. So most of us, we operate an agrarian economy. So before the machine revolution, it used to be a lot of manpower. There were people who were getting married because they wanted to produce more children who can farm. You get. So on a very primal level, that has been passed down into our subconscious minds. And that's why if you have African parents and then you want to flex on them, and then you just like, do you know how many people that work with me? I have like 10 people I'm paying per salaries. And so it's sort of like a vanity metrics thing. But people have to realize that labor has now shifted from having a lot of headcounts to having a lean team of people who are extremely good at what they do, being specially enabled by artificial intelligence.
So in actuality, the least people that you have, the more better you can do now, as long as they know how to use the current technologies that can help make the work easier and faster and better.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what you're optimizing for in a company, if you're optimizing for a company that scales, that maybe is sellable, because I think part of what I want to achieve too is to make it normal for African businesses to sell. Do you get? So, private equity and stuff. If you're building a business that you want, to scale, you want to be looking for A players, and then those A players get like this turbo boost, or like they get on steroids when they are operating with AI, when they are enabled by artificial intelligence. So I think people should not be shaming people for using artificial intelligence. If you are an intelligent person, AI basically follows your logic and then, just writes off the context that you give it and stuff. So even if you don't know how to prompt engineer, to do prompt engineering, you can't get the best out of AI and stuff. So, I mean, if you look at Telegram is a $30 billion company and they have just 30 people. 30 people. There's a guy on Facebook named Charles Awuzie. He did a breakdown of what it will cost Nigerian companies to reach a value of 30 billion. And it will cost not less than 1,000 employees. And the company is doing that with just 30 people. So what that does is it tells you the capability of the kind of people in Telegram. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, the alpha players.
Yes, they are all A players who are there. And it boils down to the fact that the future of a company can be calculated by the quality of talents in the company. And that's why when maybe institutional investors are looking to buy a company, they are always looking into the companies because they want to see the people who are actually in the company, the quality of talent that is in the company. So I think right now, the future of business is going to be lean teams enabled with artificial intelligence that can make great impacts.
I agree with you. I mean, I've seen a lot of production go on, even on my end. One of the most important things that we're trying to do is to get people to like familiarize themselves with AI prompt engineering. How do you use these technologies for your own good? How do you make them your bodies that they can do? I mean, it's there to do a lot of people's job. I don't have to outsource entirely, but you need to be good first. You need to train yourself, which is even going to lead into the next question. As a founder, building teams, what are you most important, like in particular, what are those most important things to you? In my case, it's the education and the hunger to learn and self-develop. Even when I'm not there, you are actively putting in the work to make sure that you are 1% better each day that goes by, right? So what is yours? I'm just like trying to be like pick a lot of founders brain in these things, man. Maybe I can borrow most of yours in that.
Because I'm more on the part of building business and scaling businesses, I think what I'm looking for and what any founder who wants to build a business that scales should be looking for is you should be looking for people who have specific domain expertise in areas that you do not have specific domain expertise. And what it means is that when we conduct interview processes for hiring for a new role, again, my team is very lean. One of the things I do is to take a lot of people for the interviews, and I start to listen when I ask questions, because my questions are, I don't ask questions like, where do you see yourself in this company? So I'm asking questions like, and I learned this from Elon. I'm asking questions like, tell me a time where you solved a particular problem relating to this niche skill that you have, and how did you solve it? So somebody who has domain expertise will be able to go 5-7 steps deeper to tell you how they solved a particular problem. And somebody who doesn't have domain expertise will just gloss over it. So for instance, I would say, have you solved high churn rate before? And how did you solve it?
High what?
High churn rate. So churn rate is basically when the people who are leaving the business are more than the people who are coming in. So maybe people are canceling out their subscription, or people are no longer, renewing their plans or stuff. So somebody who is very good at marketing, who has niche marketing skill, will tell you, first of all, are we in an industry where the churn is naturally high and there's nothing we can do about it other than increase the lead flow who are signing up? Because there are industries like that where, people just churn out naturally. You can't really do much about it. And then if the person gets that context, then they are going deeper to like, what is our price point? Are we at the right price point? And the right price point doesn't necessarily mean that you're selling for cheap. Sometimes it means that you're selling for the wrong price point, because if your customer avatar is people who can afford luxury and then you're selling them a cheap thing, you're necessarily you're just putting them off, because rich people associate, price with value. So it's with poor people that you have to be doing a lot of affordability and stuff. So you want to be sure that you're selling the right offer to the right people. So the person will investigate that, are we selling the right offers to the right people? And at what point are they canceling? At what point are they not renewing? So that will take us through the customer journey, the customer experience. What is their time to value? The time to value is basically the time between when the person pays for your service and the time when they get the result of what they paid for. So is it very long? What can we do? Can we shorten it? And the customers, are they facing overload? That means, are they being exposed to a lot of information that they can't exactly choose? So we want to troubleshoot that and make sure that, okay, we are giving them, in the information bit by bit, instead of it's just like maybe if somebody registers for a course and then you just load them up with everything. Most of the time, the churn rate is going to be high because people are facing overwhelm. It's just like the Netflix problem. Everybody has, it's like a universal Netflix malady. I don't know if to use malady, where you're on Netflix and then because there's a lot of shows, you don't know which one to exactly watch. And I used to think it was very unique to me until I started hearing people say it on the internet. The shows are just too much. It's not narrowed down. And then, so because of the availability of a lot of options, people get overwhelmed and then they cancel out naturally. Do you get? So
That thing?
yes.
Oh.
Yes. So overwhelm can make, your churn rate high. So somebody who is very good at marketing will go through all these steps that I've gone through. And then that's how they will fix. So they'll finally figure, okay, the time to value is very, very is extended. Can we break this process down into maybe 5 days where they are getting positive reinforcement and then they have a sense of progress, that they are making progress? And if they are not skilled with marketing, they've not solved churn rate before, there's no way they will know all of these steps. So cycling it back to the main thing we're talking about, you want to be looking for people that educate you about metrics that you don't even know as a founder. Do you get? People that tell you details that you don't even know about, what you are employing for. Because the thing is, once you are not comfortable with having very smart people on your team, you're going to be the one who's doing all the brainstorming. All the fresh ideas are going to be coming from you. And you're even going to face key man risk because...
What's key man risk?
Okay, key man risk is when you have a business that cannot function outside of the founder or the key man. So there are businesses that are built around the founder in such a way that if the founder is not available, everything crumbles. So, and those businesses are usually not sellable because there's no institutional investor or a private equity firm who wants to come and put their money to buy your job. Because immediately you are out of it, the whole thing just crumbles. So it's just, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Wow. I'm blown away. I get, but there is I'm thinking around that line of entrepreneurship and service-based businesses, right? I think it still depends on the type of business that you want to do particularly. That's what determines how you want to like navigate all of this parts. If we're doing like a serviceman business where it's just you have to be there to do the thing. So, I mean, Vusi would always say you're not an entrepreneur. You just
have a job, or
you're like
self-employed.
a self-employed person, all of that. So
I think you can scale service businesses. It just depends on how. So I think a lot of business problems will be solved if people learn to rephrase it is impossible for I don't know how to do it. So a lot of people assume that you cannot scale a service business when in reality they just don't know how to scale a service business.
how can we do that?
And that frame is not just unique for business. It applies to every other thing in life. So easy if you want to scale a service business, there are like 3 key components in every business. There's a client acquisition, customer acquisition, there is the fulfillment or the delivery of the service, and there's the operations. So the client acquisition, person, let's break it down into 3 persons right now. The client acquisition person is constantly making sure that people are coming into the business and then the business is being kept alive. The service delivery is making sure that the company is fulfilling on the promise that they made to the clients that were acquired. And then the operations person is making sure that both of them are doing what they are supposed to be doing, which is bringing in customers and then delivering on the service and making sure that they are not over-promising and under-delivering, sort of like quality control, so that both people are kept out of jail. Do you understand what I'm saying? So essentially, if you boil any kind of business into those 3 components, then you now see that a lot of service businesses don't scale because the founders try to do all 3 of these things.
The first one you mentioned is?
The first one here is customer acquisition. The second is the service delivery. And then the third is the operations. And operations is basically making sure that both customer acquisition and service delivery is constantly in motion. So founders who cannot scale businesses, maybe service or even products, are founders who try to do all 3 by themselves. Do you get? So that's usually why people cannot scale, their business.
So it's safe to say when you put these things in place, like have people that do customer acquisition, have people that do the service delivery itself, and people that ensures that those operations are carried out effectively, you can scale any service business.
You can scale any service business. And I think, as somebody who has sat across different tables, I think every founder should be disgustingly educated about marketing, or at least your co-founder should be. And that's because of the fact that if you do not have resources flowing into the business, it's only a matter of time before you go out of business. If money is not coming in, it's only a matter of time before you go out of business. And if you leave that to a third party, they are going to own you, because at the point where you guys have maybe like a clash or you fall out and they're not sending leads your way, everybody is stuck. So I think every founder wants to, which is what we do at Lotus. So the people that we work with, we're also training their marketing team internally. Yes. So our model is unique in the sense that after 6 months of working with them and training them, we can decide to, hands off, and then the operation still works. Except for people who we are, long-term partners with, and then we have equity in the companies. and then we are scaling them to a billion naira mark, which is what we're, working goal that we're working towards. So because as a founder, you have to focus on one of these things if you want to scale all three. So if you focus on customer acquisition, you do not have the risk of a third party, customer acquisition agency flopping you and then, the business getting stuck. And if you focus on customer acquisition, you just have to make sure that the service delivery part, you're just doing quality control, do you get? And then you have like an HR who is constantly ensuring that everything is running smoothly and everybody's going smoothly. So you're not gliding between all three. As a matter of fact, I think one of my red flags in founders is if a founder is very busy and they're not niche busy, I'll explain what I mean by niche busy. If they're not niche busy, I do not take them seriously. So any founder that I would take seriously is a founder that needs down to either service, delivery or customer acquisition. So you are either spending time sending more traffic into the business, via maybe personal brand, marketing campaigns and all of this stuff, partnerships and stuff, or you are focused on making the product very good, very better. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the point where you're trying to do all three of this doesn't work. And that's why companies don't scale and African businesses are stuck, because the founder is doing service delivery, doing customer acquisition, and then making sure that everything is working.
When you're building a startup right now, and you don't have the funds to hire these key people that can function in three of these roles: customer acquisition, service delivery, and operations individually, which maybe you focused on operations to ensure that. I'm thinking that, okay, a lot of founders are operators who know how to manage the people that they bring on board, right? But you don't have the funding, you don't have a runway to make sure that this particular niche are like always serviced constantly by people. How do you go about that?
So first, a frame that I apply to this is that you're not the first startup who didn't have funding. There are companies that we look up to today that literally started without funding, and all they had was everyone who was a key man or who was an A player on the team had equity in the business. And it was until when they had product market fit or they had really MVP, as people were saying, the startup space, before they got funding and the guys started having money from what they were building. So the route that you can go when you don't have the money to hire all these people. And if you're in a service business, essentially if you're in a service business, it's okay for you to do this, when you're just starting business. But if you want to scale it, then you have to like niche to one of these, because there's this example from Steve Jobs where I think one of his key man was asking him that, why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing this other thing? Why are we not doing this other thing? And then he wrinkled 3 papers and then he threw it at him and was like, catch it. He was like, catch this. And the guy could only catch one. So it means that you can only focus on one thing per time. And Alex Ramosi has this very good quote around this, that asking life for everything is how life gives you nothing. So in essence, you can do equity splits with people, but you want to be very sure that you're not very diluted, because you're not like giving 20%, 30%, 40% and stuff. And you also want to be looking for people who actually, because at that early stage, the people who would agree to work with you are people who actually enjoy doing what they are doing. So maybe you have a technical co-founder and then you are like the executive co-founder. You naturally want to have somebody who is your technical co-founder because they enjoy writing codes, because they are just like a geek. They just enjoy doing it because, this stuff is lovely. Do you get?
Yes.
And then maybe you want to ensure that everybody on your team loves doing what they are doing, because for the time period between where you start and where you get, when you achieve product market fit, when you have maybe your MVP, there won't be any external positive reinforcement other than the fact that you love what you're doing. Do you get? So you want to be sure that the people on your team are people who love what they are doing, and then you're not very diluted too. That's how to go about it. You're not unlucky. There are people who have started from worse conditions and then they have achieved, very excellent products. I'll give you an example. There's the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen something, I can't pronounce his name.
Pronounce it. Jensen Zoa.
Yeah. If you see his LinkedIn profile, it was trending at some point. He went from dishwasher to CEO of NVIDIA. those were the two places he has ever worked in his life, from dishwasher boy to CEO of Nvidia. So how much would a dishwasher boy would have saved to be able to afford maybe devs that will build, the stuff that they build there? There's practically no way you could have maybe done that. And if you want to get funded, you have to have proof of work. You have to have proof of concepts.
Yeah.
So the bridge between when you have the idea and when you have the proof of concept that, investors can fund is that you need to have people who actually love what they are doing for the sake of doing that stuff and then just having fun. If you see the movie, the Blackberry movie.
Yeah, I think I've seen it.
Yes,
Yeah.
you see that the guys like Lazarus and, the other
The co-founder.
they were just having fun because just they love what they're doing, blasting music, vibe coding and stuff. So there was no positive reinforcement in quotes until when they actually built something. So what gets you through the bridge of getting funded is that you actually love what you're doing, because that's what will keep you going till you get funded or till you actually, start making money from the business.
Based off of your experience, right? Building your 2 previous companies that failed, what are like the most common mistakes that founders don't even know that this thing is a mistake, but like they keep doing it, and over time it costs them their company, costs them the idea,
I think one of the ways I've gotten very hot in business is via partnerships. Okay, so I've gotten in bed with some very bad people who didn't keep their own words. At the time when I was coming out of my depressive episode, I partnered with a business, and then I was supposed to be paid on performance basis, and the business was doing very well, but because I didn't have access to the books, I didn't know the business. I was just going off of word of mouth. Oh, there's no money coming in the business, no money coming in the business. And when I did a rough estimate of what I was cheated of, plus or minus 5 million naira, and everything I got then was less than 1 million. I mean, less than 500K, if you get what I'm saying. You want to look for the right people to work with.
how do you know them?
Yes. You're basically looking for people who have integrity, people who are high agency. That means they don't necessarily need supervision before they get things done. And you want to be sure that the person you're partnering with is somebody that you actually like and you can have dinner with, because the process of partnership itself is coming together, and it means there will be friction. And so if you guys don't have that baseline of we actually are pals or we like each other, when there's friction, you guys will just fall out. But if you guys are like cool, every time there's friction, you'll fall back to the baseline of we're still cool, we're still pals. Do you get? So 3 things I look out for: high agency, high integrity, and then I want to make sure that I actually like the person. Is the person of what the character, do their values align with mine? I'll tell you a short story about this. Another short story. There was a deal we were working on. I was supposed to be partner with on the deal. And then the deal was going to involve electric vehicles. And this was even before, respectable people like Obi Kubana and stuff started diving into electric vehicles, MKB motors and stuff. I knew because I worked in logistics for a while. And so I saw that it's not even sustainable with the price of fuel and all of this stuff. The profit margin was literally wiped out when I was, head of. I was actually running the logistics company. So I knew that it was either EVs or logistics dies, and logistics cannot die because humans constantly have to move things from one place to the other. So essentially what I did was I started looking out for EVs and stuff. So I changed the business idea I see how the whole thing, sent it to a couple of people, and then got a guy that responded. But then the guy was just bringing money. And then I was the one who was going to do the heavy lifting, essentially run the business. Do you get up from the business? And it didn't feel like a fair deal to me. And then the person was a person that I didn't really like. Do you get? So at some point we were negotiating, and then because the guy was bringing money, was not like, okay, we have to do 60-40. And then I'm like, okay, you have just financial risk. I'm the one who is undergoing the staffing. I'm the one who is running the business. I'm the one who is doing marketing. I'm the one who is doing, managing the whole partnerships and all of these things with other people.
And he doesn't have any idea about how the business.
He practically doesn't have any idea. So what he's doing is bringing in funds, and I have to just back out of the partnership because he didn't serve me, and if I'd gone into it, I would have felt cheated, and it wouldn't work out at some point. So You don't want to get in bed with people you don't like. You don't want to get in bed with people who don't have a track record of high integrity. And high integrity doesn't mean that people have not made mistakes or made losses before in business. What it means is that they are people who are respectable, and then when they say something, you can actually trust that that's what it actually is. Because a lot of times when you share business lessons like this, people think maybe you read it from books. But if I tell you a business lesson, it's because I've actually lost money, my money, other people's money too. Some of it proprietary funds, from, people I was working with abroad. And it all looks fancy when you're telling somebody, don't be this in your business, don't get in bed with bad people. But I got in bed with bad people, sure you get. And so high integrity doesn't mean people have not made mistakes. It just means that you can trust their word when they say, this is what we're doing. This is what it is that they will be doing, because you don't want to have someone who votes you down in the board or somebody. There have been cases where founders were kicked out of their companies. So you have examples of Steve Jobs.
Yeah, I remember.
That was kicked out of the company again because the guy was actually like the star player of the company. They had to bring him back because the company was not diving. Do you get what I'm saying? And then you have the days of PayPal, and then Elon Musk and stuff. There was literally a time where Elon was out of the business and then was voted out. It's not a very publicly known story. And then I think it was Peter Thiel and co that were part of the stuff. Well, I don't know if they have made up now or they've gotten together, but it was a proper vendetta then. So you don't want to be with people who you cannot trust. The other mistake I think people also make is we overanalyze how much it takes to hire A players, and then we underanalyze the cost of having just B and C players. I'll explain what that means. So typically A players naturally cost maybe 20-30% above market, average. And if you want to bring in A players, you have to be willing to take a hit for maybe 2-3 months. Do you get? Because
Just the finances.
Yes, because it will eat into your profit temporarily. But then the outputs that A players bring, number one, because they save you time. And how you know somebody is an A player is if they leave, the company is fucked. Do you get? So you also have people that if they leave, the company is fucked. You know a B player or if they leave, we'll be shaking or we'll still survive. You know a C player if they leave,
Nothing.
everything still goes on. Do you get? So you can just apply that right now into your business to determine A players, B players, and C players. A players, if they leave, are fucked. We have to the company is in helter skelter. B players, if they leave, we'll be shaking a bit, but we'll catch up. We just slow us down. C players, okay, I'll give you an example of an A player. For instance, Meta, they are currently taking a deep, we will call it deep use because they are a lot of money. So they're currently parting with billions to bring in the Alex guy right now. And so what a lot of founders don't know is that because A players save you time, and because the outcome of their work is disproportionate compared to B and C players. So A players naturally pay for themselves. Do you get? The return on their work naturally pays for themselves. We may just take maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, depending on the context that they are in. So the mistake founders make is not being willing to make the trade-off between getting A players in, for those who have the funds, getting low players in, and then they just settle with B and C players. And people now even make the gravest of the mistakes to say, hire somebody who doesn't have a niche domain, and then we're going to train them. I was literally yelling about this a few days ago.
So you think we shouldn't do that?
Yeah, you don't do that. If you want to run an NGO or you want to run a company that is just chill, you can, do that. But what you have to consider when you're hiring is, if you're hiring somebody who doesn't have specific domain knowledge or domain expertise, the obvious cost of that is what will it take to teach this person and how long will it take to teach this person. The hidden cost of that is how much is it going to cost us to teach this person, in the sense that how much would we have been making if we had brought an A player in and things were running smoothly. So if you do the calculation of how much you could have been making, most of the time you just see that it's not worth bringing in a C player or bringing in a B player.
But what if you don't have the funds?
If you don't have the funds, because I think a lot of A players are not even people who are moved by your money. As a matter of fact, a lot of A players, because there's a point where you get to the top 1% of talents don't want your money because some of them already made, serious amount of money. For instance, I'll give you this. Being a recent president in acquisition.com, that's Alex Moses' company.
Yes, I saw it.
So that guy has already scaled companies to billions twice. So what would Alex and Leila have told him? Like, we're going to, pay you money. We're going to give you a lot of, what can you do if you come to this company? No, the track record is already there. So you typically get A players on your team when you can paint a future of what they can get, not in terms of money, because most of the time they have already made the monies. And A players you have to headhunt for them sometimes. That's why you always see this thing in high tech where this person leaves Google, goes to Microsoft, because there's constantly
Poaching.
yeah, we want to call it poaching, but there's constantly a bid for the best of the best talents across industries. Do you get? And that will bring me to the third mistakes that people make.
I think the fourth one.
The fourth one, because
Yes.
and that's the fact that you don't want to hire somebody to run business operations if the person is unemployed. That's deep. Yes, that's because if the person were that good, he'd probably be employed. And so, yeah. There are a few exceptions where maybe shit happens and then maybe the person has to be let go unfairly or something. Maybe they did some shady stuff and then, they had to be let go.
What if the brand doesn't have money to keep paying them at the time when they are unemployed?
No, the brand will, because the A player was actually working there. A players naturally pay for themselves, remember, because of the outcome of their skill, their niche domain expertise. The point where you have A players, I think naturally, the thing is, if you are in the top 1% of the talent pool, money doesn't move you anymore. So what moves you is the connections that you can get, that you guys can exchange. So you're promising people connection, you're promising them access, to rooms, you're promising them, majorly at that level, you don't exchange money anymore. You're exchanging the fact that they have a future together. You guys can have a future together, not necessarily maritally. You are exchanging networks of I know these people and then I can introduce you to, these people. Do you get? And I won't even be surprised if Alex Wang, the guy who is going to Meta now, if he once worked with OpenAI. I won't be very surprised. It may not be publicly disclosed, maybe for reasons best known to them. Do you get what I'm saying? So A players naturally they are not moved by money. They are not people who you tell, what would you do if I bring you on the team? The interview process for A players is different because you have to head on for them. Sometimes it takes you maybe like 3 to 6 months to look for one A player. And then before you negotiate and then they agree to, come in.
A lot of freelancers. So you think that a lot of freelancers are not A players?
Yes. I actually have a very strong take about this. A lot of freelancers are not as good as they think they are. The reason why they have not realized is because they are not part of a team that constantly places demand on the limits of your skill. It's one thing to think you are competent. It's another thing to be in an environment that tests the limits of your competence. So a lot of freelancers are just, they're in the gig economy and then they just deliver one-time stuff and then they move on. It's one thing to do a one-off fix. It's another thing to be part of a company that is actually solving actual problems where you have tight deadlines, where you have schedules, where you have to meet up with timelines or everything is going to drag. And then you cannot escape it because you're an integral part of it. If you're in the gig economy, you're just like, yeah, I will do it. And when I'm done, they will pay me. Or, worst case scenario, they just remove a little bit out of my store because I didn't meet up with the timeline. But when you are part of an integral team where you have a reputation to keep, you are part of the culture, you are sold in on the vision, so you are obligated to constantly test the limit of your knowledge because, again, you want to be delivering on the job. And if you are the right person for the job, your mindset is that I don't want to be the bottleneck of this business. So being part of a team that is building something very, very remarkable, test the limit of your skill and test the limit of your knowledge.
So who would you say is an A player?
An A player is somebody who brings in specific domain expertise. They're not very good at everything, but they are disgustingly good at one thing. An A player is somebody who, if they leave the business is fucked. For some companies, it may be their top coder, it may be some guy. Most of the time, companies don't reveal their A players publicly because apparently you don't want them to be poached and stuff, but they still get poached because, everybody knows who is moving the needle, so an A player is somebody who, if they leave, you're fucked. A B player, on the other hand, is somebody who, if they leave, the company may slow down operations, but then things will still happen. A C player is somebody who, if they leave, like, you don't care. So A players are people who have niche domain expertise, and that's what I talk about a lot. Like, you have to have specific domain expertise because that's what the world rewards. The world doesn't reward people who are averagely good at different things. The world rewards people who are extremely good at specific, things, and then they can provide specific outcomes based on what is demanded of them.
So, in your own word,
Mm.
do you think freelancers cannot be A players because they are not committed to a particular vision or goal of a team? So, standalone, they are doing their own thing. They are doing everything. So, they are not sold on any vision of anybody. They just want to be good at stuff because they love it so crazily that they write codes, they ship. Because you see people building different stuffs and putting it out there for free. A lot of solutions that you use, like for antivirals, they're just like building stuffs because they want to solve a particular problem, but they are extremely good at that thing. They just don't like your company ethos, your vision. What they're doing is cool, but with all of your money that you're willing to offer them, they just don't feel like, I want to be part of anything, maybe at the time, but they're like constantly evolving in terms of development and harnessing much critical skills on a particular niche that they are building stuffs at, like maybe themselves. So I'm like trying to balance how you said freelancer cannot be an A player. I understand that
I didn't say freelancers cannot be an A player. I said
so, but you understand my thought line. And I'm just like trying to balance that because a lot of freelancers might see this. I'm like, oh. So I'm thinking, am I an A player? That's the question I'm asking myself. I know it like a lot. And we can't always have A players. I want to believe that, right? Not everyone will be an A player. We need B players as well.
Yeah. Well, I think if you see it from what constitutes reality, so long as they are winners, they're losers. Maybe harsh, but it's true.
It's what it is.
And what makes A players have value is because of the vast difference between what they can provide and what B and C players can provide. What I said is most freelancers are not as good as they think they are. And that's because of the fact that they're not subject to something that they are not specifically focused on that is testing the boundary of their knowledge. Are there freelancers that are A players? Of course, yes. That, some of them, eventually develop into a full-blown agency, third-party agency. Do you get? So they are people who are A players and they are not like necessarily in a team. But what being part of a team or building an agency does is it gives you structure, and then the limits of your expertise and knowledge is constantly being pushed and tested.
Do you think that an individual A player cannot achieve the same feat with an A player that is in a system or a structure that is well built with other A players?
Can you rephrase that?
So I am an A player. I'm on my own. I'm not building with, I want to believe it works like that. So like thought pattern. I'm not contributing to any vision, any team. I'm not working with anybody. Team of A players, for instance. Do you believe that I cannot put out so much? I cannot build any sustainable solution or solve any global problem on my own individually without being in a team, or like achieve what any average A player, any A player in any team can do?
Well, I think the context boils down into what the real focus actually is, which is the A player. The player matters more than the companies they are in. So if you put an A player in any context, so long they are an A player, they have niche domain skills, they'll be able to deliver on any job. So I don't think, although there may be benefits of having other A players around you to set the tone, very big, it's uncomfortable for you to relax. So there's the benefit of that. But I think an A player is an A player anyway. Put them in any context, they're going to deliver. That's what makes them A player. They're exceptional.
Why do you think people don't get very good at something despite them knowing that they are not good? There is no willingness to even get better.
Actually, there's something about this, that the depth of focus needed to get very good at a niche skill that helps you command a premium, to help you charge a premium, cannot be achieved when you are spread too thin across different things. So people don't get extremely good at a specific skill because they are trying to master different things at the same time. And so it boils back to that Steve Jobs, example again, where he throws 3 papers at you. It's like catch them. So you can only catch one at the same time. And we're seeing this in the history of the market, that the market rewards niche operators. A players are people who are not good at everything, but they have one thing that they can make work, and they can make it work at any given time. So I think this ties to the idea that people do not separate the objective nature of the world as it is versus when the world is seen with their own biases, their own narratives, and their own beliefs. There is how the world works versus how you wish the world worked. So the point where you've probably heard people say, like, I've done my best. And so you're like, don't do your best, do what is required to win. Because your best is not the benchmark of success.
Yes.
So people don't win eventually, tying this back to winning. People don't win eventually because they think the limit of their own strength or their knowledge is what it takes to win, when in fact people have pushed past that limit. And then if you want to be recognized, you have to outdo the people who have just done it best.
What are those 2 things that you can tell anyone who's building like so far, based off of your experience, that want to see massive success?
Okay. The first thing is niche down. You cannot get very good at something if you're doing everything. And I think we spoke about it earlier, where you're either focused on customer acquisition, or you're focusing on delivery, or you're focusing on operations. And it's very sensible for you to focus on customer acquisition. So you want to niche down, and then you want to ensure that your focus is on one thing, either sending traffic into the business, or you're focused on making the product delivery better. So I think that's one thing. The second thing is, when you hire an expert, you treat them like an expert. You don't sit across the table. And that's why businesses don't have a lot of A players. Why some A players actually prefer to stand alone. Because you don't sit across the table with A players, or you don't have A players on your team and try to feel like you're the smartest. Because, like, if you're the smartest, why didn't you get it done before you brought me in? So the ability to silence one's ego and then just get the job done is something I think a lot of, especially in Nigeria, I think a lot of people need to imbibe that. Like, ego doesn't get the job done. It just muzzles everything up. So you want to be able to silence your ego. And to push that further, you don't want to be the smartest person on your team. You don't want to be the smartest person, because it means that you're basically doing most of the heavy lifting. The fresh ideas are coming from you. All the innovations are coming from you. All the component alterations are coming from you, compared to when you have really, really smart people. So when you have really smart people, you can focus on something, and then you trust them that so long they have the resources and then they have the freedom, you leave them alone. Because one thing with A players is, once you provide them the resources, just leave them to it. Do you get? And the growth of a company can be calculated by how many people you can actually leave things to unsupervised in the company that gets the job done. So you want to have people like that. And then the third thing is, you want to do a lot of marketing, because if the goal of the business is to make money, then people have to see the business, whether you're in B2B sales or you're in B2C sales. If you're not constantly attracting eyeballs to the product, it's only a matter of time before you run out of money. And once you run out of money, you run out of business.
So we've had a lot of wholesome conversation today. A lot of it. And now, in the bid to niche down more on most of these topics, I think the next time we're going to be talking about high performance. How to become a high performer. Why you must be a high performer as a business owner, as a startup founder, as an employee, as an A player. Why you need to be a high performance person? What is the importance?
Can I drop one real quick as it is to the next episode?
Yes.
The internet has made competition global. So mediocrity is the fastest way to fade into irrelevance.
Wow.
What a thought line. So I'm actually going to like run with this for the most part. And that's high performance art conversation combo is going to come in very soon.
I'm excited for it.
We don't know when, but it's going to come in pretty soon.
Yeah.
And this is the point where we have one ask for you, like we do, and we want to let you know what our ask is. We want to keep chatting about high performance. We want to bring different high-performing guests in different niche and industry on the Positive Thought podcast. We want to ask them questions that you want answers to, and we want to ensure that we're delivering value. But we're not going to be able to do that except you are in partnership with us. Just one thing we want you to do, hit the subscribe button, and please leave a comment. You have questions, yes. We're going to link Mayokun's details in the description. They get his contacts, how you can get in touch with Mayokun.
You work with me if you want.
Definitely work with lotus.com. Very, very important stuff. So they help us do most of our marketing strategies and all of that. So very important thing that we're doing here. And we want your support just by subscribing. Make sure you bookmark this video for next time. There are a lot of things that we talked about in this episode that you're going to need even in the future. That's to reiterate on most of these things. That is how we keep running. We're not asking you to pay us. We're not asking you to send in funds. That would be lovely as well. But then please ensure that you leave a like, subscribe, and
leave a comment.
Leave a comment. Share this definitely with your team members to enable them grow and become high performance person. Thank you so much for being with us up until now. And thank you so much, Mayokun Johnson, for joining us on this episode of Mediocre Podcast.
This has been a long time coming. Most of my related on this for a long time.